Good morning. Great to be here in Goa. So I just picked up the paper today, and the first thing I read is today is Bob Marley's 66th birth anniversary. I hope everyone knows Bob Marley here in Goa, okay? I mentioned that because Bob Marley has been very special to me personally. I've dedicated my thesis to him, but more importantly, I've actually used songs to promote literacy. So I'm very happy to be here. But the goal today of my presentation is to actually share with you an idea, how can we make 1 billion people read on a regular basis? Not 10, not 1,000, 1 billion. India has made a lot of progress in literacy, and we have gone from something like 18% to 65%, and probably the new census will say probably something like 70 to 75%. But can our literate people really read? I'll repeat that question. Can our literate people really read? Okay. What we find is that almost half the children who go to primary school cannot read. So across India, you probably find that there are about over 300 million people who are called literate but actually cannot read. That's the yellow that you see behind me. And of course, in addition, there are another 300 million who are completely illiterate.
मुझे पढ़ना नहीं आता है।
पढ़ना नहीं आता है। तो आप कौन सी क्लास में हैं?
हम
सातवीं क्लास में। तो सातवीं क्लास में तो ऐसे तो पढ़ना आ जाना चाहिए, नहीं? मुश्किल होती है पढ़ने में?
हम तो हमारे टीचर है ना क्लास पढ़ाते हैं, तो ऐसा ही लिखा के क्लास में ऑफिस में जाके बैठ जाती है और नाश्ता करती है।
Okay, so there are 300 million such kavitas around the country who are called literate but who cannot read. There are several things about Kavita we can learn from, but mainly I want to point out three things. You know, she can actually read a little bit, the alphabet, but she can't read a newspaper, for example. She doesn't have too much reading content that's available to her in her own language. Now, you might not have heard of Professor Edward Lorenz, but you might have heard about the butterfly effect, which is that a small butterfly flapping its wings somewhere in Brazil could set off a tornado in Texas. Okay, the question I ask you is there a butterfly for literacy? Okay, a small perturbation somewhere that could create a massive impact in terms of reading development across the nation. Of course, television, as you know, has penetrated almost every part of India, and today we have 650 million people already with access to TV. Mobile phones, 750 million. I mean, so these are the screens that people are looking at on an everyday basis. So here's a simple idea. I mean, it's so simple that it's almost deceptive what it can do. So we call it same language subtitling. The way it happened was really that in 1996, I was a student in the US. We were just a bunch of us watching a Spanish film, and I remember the name of the film. It was Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, a very famous film by Pedro Almodovar. And it came with English subtitles. And as students of Spanish, I felt that why don't they put Spanish subtitles on Spanish cinema? It was a little counterintuitive at that point. And perhaps we would learn Spanish language better. And then it was just a casual suggestion. Why don't they put Indian language subtitles on Indian language film songs or films, and perhaps that would have a massive impact on literacy. So here's the idea.
Touch me, please touch me, touch me. Touch me, touch me, please bless me, bless me. Touchadra Lakupati, blessadra Sukhupati, Misadra Tirupati, Sri Lakshmi, Varalakshmi, Jai Lakshmi.
Okay, so you get the idea. In every language, what you hear is exactly what you read. And it so happens that people subconsciously read along. And that's where I'll talk about the research a bit. So it started in Gujarat in 1999. Then we put it on a Hindi film song program. So clearly you got the entire Hindi belt. And then since 2006, we've been actually doing it in 8 languages. And pretty much the yellow part that you see, that's where at least one program a week of film songs is going with same language subtitles. And it is giving reading practice to 200 million week readers. So this is how it is consumed in Gujarat. On a Sunday morning, Rangoli program is being telecast on Doordarshan. Some of you may be still watching Doordarshan. But in the villages, it's very popular. And they're reading along. So we asked them, do you actually watch or do you really read? Do you watch the actors? And this was the answer we got.
नहीं पढ़ रही थी और पीछे भी
मुश्किल नहीं
सकती है जो आता है वो गाते हैं और पढ़ते हैं जो नहीं आता वो पढ़ते हैं और जो आता है वो गाते हैं
आपका नाम
खानो
Clearly, people do not ignore the subtitles. It's almost, the research is so strong on this that they actually subconsciously do read along, especially when it's in the same language. And here are some reasons of perceived benefit.
अच्छा लगता है पता चलता है ना जिसको ऐसे बोलते हैं उसमें नहीं मालूम चला तो लिखा हुआ पढ़ लेते हैं तो अच्छा
लिखा हुआ पढ़ ले तो अच्छा लगता है अच्छा और कोई बात अच्छी लगी उससे क्या फायदा हो सकता है बताइए
इससे गाना लिखना हो तो लिखना जाएगा
इससे
गाना लिखना हो तो लिखा जाएगा
गाना लिखना हो तो लिखा जाएगा अच्छा तो आप लिखेंगे बैठ के गाना अच्छा नहीं अच्छी बात कही और कोई बताइए कुछ ये बताएंगे
जिससे कम सुनाई देता है वो पढ़ सकता है
जिससे कम सुनाई देता है वो पढ़ सकता है अच्छा जिससे कम सुनाई देता है
Okay, so we started seeing that there are multiple benefits. Even the people who have a hearing challenge, they can get access to some of these songs, the words of these songs, and follow along the meaning. We did some research to see whether actually people look at that part of the screen where the subtitles are there. So clearly, what you see is, to your left, what you see is a person's weak reader watching the song without the subtitles. And that's what they're looking on the screen. And the same person, weak reader, watching the song with the subtitles. And you start seeing that they're looking at the bottom of the screen. Of course, that's not proof that the person is actually reading. Right? All we can say is that the person is looking at that part of the screen. So we, of course, did some tests on reading skills and writing skills. And I don't want to go into too much of the detail of the methodology, but basically it's an independently conducted studies by Nielsen's ORG Center for Social Research. We are following actually since 2002 a large sample of people, and roughly a group that sees the songs with the subtitles on a regular basis and another group that doesn't see the songs with the subtitles, and we compared them. And we ran a battery of tests, and this is what we found. So what you see is to your left, after 5 years, an illiterate child has gone, in 5 years, what we find is that 25% remain completely illiterate even after 5 years of schooling. That's shocking. What we find is about 50% become weak readers. Okay, that's our target group, the yellow. And we find that only about 24% become good readers. Now, these children were not exposed to the subtitles. The other group that saw the subtitles, what we found is that the green zone has actually more than doubled. So just by the simple addition of subtitles on popular cinema and popular songs that people watch, you can actually double the number of good readers in the country. We also asked ourselves, does it have an impact on writing? Because remember the video said that they actually write down the lyrics. Again, we found very similar impact. The last two graphs you see, the no subtitle group, no SLS group, the yellow, and compared to the subtitle group in the green, we find that a larger percentage of children are able to write a complete address, their own complete address. Similarly, we found impact on newspaper reading. Clearly, we don't want them to only be reading along to songs. What we again found is that newspaper reading among children and adults who watch these programs with the subtitles actually we found that there's a higher incidence of newspaper reading as well. The ratings of the programs went up as well. right? So it's a win-win for television as well as education. Cost is a major reason why we're doing this. And clearly, you know, if we spend about 10 lakhs or $20,000 on one program, when I say one program, I mean 52 episodes of that program for a whole year, you divide it by the number of people you reach. And in a Hindi film song program, you can reach upwards of 100 million. So you start getting ridiculous figures like 1 paisa per person per year to give that person reading practice. Right? So $1 can actually give 5,000 people reading practice. That's the power of using media and leveraging media. There have been policy champions, and this is the CEO of Prasar Bharati. And here's what he had to say.
I really felt it was worth doing, having worked in HRD myself. I feel very happy about it because now almost 8 stations of Doordarshan have it. And I'm sure other channels and other people will also have it in future. I like this program because, you see, we are making so much effort to make people literate, particularly the adults.
Okay? So you get an idea that these are really the people that we want to influence. Now remember, if you notice the date, that was in 2006. Another example, the secretary, Union Secretary for School Education and Literacy, here's what she had to say.
This researched approach in the entire program was what really impressed me, and I felt that this has a tremendous potential because it can reach out to millions of our young neo-literates, and it can reinforce their literacy skills in a very fun way.
2006, okay? So what's interesting about this is in 1996 the idea was born. About first 5 years it was pure research, so scientifically it was proven, it was published in academic journals. And then since basically 2002, it's a policy battle. Now, it must be shocking to all of us here that it's been at least over 10 years after the idea has been proven and it's still not implemented across the country. So that's where really the challenges are. Of course, we're making progress through policy champions, but it's very slow. And maybe that's something that I would like to, certainly talk about maybe later, maybe in the interaction later. Yeah, we got a reasonably good plug from President Bill Clinton on same language subtitling.
Same language subtitling doubles the number of functional readers among primary school children. A small thing that has a staggering impact on people's lives.
So what I find interesting is that actually it's easier to convince people like Bill Clinton, but it's harder to convince people in the state systems. And that's where sometimes I feel that our social innovations have to be actually picked up. There has to be dialogue between the state actors as well as social innovators, and that's not happening enough. So our challenges are every song in the country should have same language subtitles, which means, even in the cinemas where the songs are, and every film that is shown on television actually has 5 or 6 songs, that's half an hour of reading practice waiting to happen with every film that is shown. So every song in every language with same language subtitling. That's our goal through policy change. I also believe that same language subtitling actually can make a contribution to global literacy. In Africa, East Africa TV has shows a lot of songs in Swahili that's home produced, that's homegrown there. We could definitely subtitle those in Swahili as well. So country after country where weak reading is a problem, we could actually implement the same language subtitling. It should also be on films. For example, in English films today, have you noticed that some of these English films are shown with English language subtitles? Actually, that's going to do wonders for English language learning in small towns and especially villages if they have access to cable, of course. That's the limitation right now. But the opportunity is there. And once you unleash people's interest in learning and give them an opportunity, they will take care of the learning aspect. So going back to the original question I asked, is there a butterfly for literacy that could cause a reading revolution and make 1 billion people read? I believe there is such a thing, and it's so simple. And imagine what a wonderful world it would be if there was no illiteracy and every person in the country could read. So I'll end with a song from none other than Louis Armstrong.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them blue for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, bright blessed days, dark sacred nights, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.